This week brought us news of 3 more WWE cuts. First, former UFC champion Cain Velasquez, who only a few short months ago signed what was said to be a very lucrative 3-year deal. He had told ESPN in an interview that he has signed a 3-year contract with WWE. Ended up having all of 2 matches with the company, one of which wasn't even televised. He was released by WWE this past week. Actually, he was released a few weeks ago. We just only heard about it now. So, begs the question, who had the better run? I even said this on Twitter. I posed this question. Who had the better run, Cain Velasquez or Rob Gronkowski, who is now headed back to the NFL? He is still the 24/7 champion. Gronk is still the 24/7 champion. If the title didn't get passed around more than herpes, I would say that maybe it means something, but let's be honest, it really doesn't. My vote, and I said my vote goes to Kevin Federline. I got to go with K-Fed on this. I think K-Fed had a better run than either one of those guys. This guy has a win over John Cena, an unavenged win over John Cena. He remains undefeated. You can't beat that. So Kofi Kingston, he was sacrificed. His 6-month reign as WWE champion was sacrificed for Cain Velasquez on that first SmackDown on Fox. You know, he was humiliated in 8 seconds. He lost the championship so that Cain could come on out. He could tackle Brock Lesnar. He could challenge Brock Lesnar. And he then proceeded to lose to Brock Lesnar in 2 minutes at Sweet Saudi Money a few weeks later. After which, we never saw him again. He did tag with Humberto Carrillo. Remember him? We were seeing him on TV every week. Now we don't see him at all. I mean, maybe he's, wherever he is, maybe he's stranded. He can't come to the tapings. Maybe that's it. But boy, yeah, we're giving him the big push. And now it's like, again, just vanished into thin air. But he did a tag team match. He tagged up with Humberto. And they beat Gallows and Anderson at a live event in Mexico City. And that was the last time that he stepped into a ring. Now, I remember when there was talk about him coming into wrestling. He's been a big wrestling fan his whole life. You know, he respects the wrestling business. Legitimate athlete, scary dude. You know, has wins over some big dudes. I mean, he's a big, tough guy. But I remember hearing about him wanting to wrestle, coming into wrestling, and having his debut match in AAA, which I believe was last August, I think. I believe it was last summer. And he showed a lot of promise. You know, I actually watched part of that tag match that he was part of. He was out there wearing a lucha mask. He was doing lucha moves. Looked very smooth for a guy that's never done this before. That's what he wanted to do, apparently, in WWE. But they didn't want that version of Cain Velasquez. They wanted UFC Cain Velasquez. They didn't want Mil Mascaras. But they weren't using him in recent months. They're paying him all this money, and so they released him. I can't wait for the Hall of Fame induction video to see how they stretch that thing out. The more surprising cut for me was Gerald Brisco, who was furloughed. He was not released. He might be brought back. But if he's not, he tweeted that it's been a heck of a run. Because there's no guarantee that all these people are going to be brought back. All the producers they let go that were furloughed and not fired. I know there's talk that perhaps they can bring some or all of these people back as early as July. There's no guarantee. If you've been furloughed, you might be brought back. You might not be brought back. So Briscoe said, if I'm not brought back, it's been a heck of a run. And it has been. He'd been with the company since 1984. This and the Mike Chioda release are the ones that shocked me the most. Briscoe had been an agent with them for many years. Obviously, he did the Stooges. I mean, this is long after he retired, obviously. He became a backstage agent. Obviously, he did the Stooges stuff with Pat Patterson back during the Attitude Era, which was very entertaining. He did have a brief stint with the 24/7 title last summer at the Raw reunion show. Then he lost it that same night. See, I would consider him technically a 3-time 24/7 champion. If you count the 2 hardcore title runs that he had from 20 years ago. He won the hardcore title not once, but twice. And back then, the 24/7 title in the Crash Holly era had that 24/7 rule. The hardcore title, anyway, had a 24/7 rule in place. So would he not technically be a 3-time 24/7 champion? I would argue that he is. I would just lump the two together. But a little over a decade ago, he suffered 3 strokes, I think all within the span of a few days of each other. I'm not even sure he realized that he had suffered 3 strokes, but he suffered 3 strokes. I think he had a 4th one a couple years after that. So he pretty much left that position that he had been in previously, transitioned to being a talent scout for the company, looking at football players, looking at amateur wrestlers. I don't have the list in front of me of names that he's recruited, but I would think that a lot of the names we see in WWE or have seen over the years, he has probably had a hand, he and Jim Ross both, in recruiting. So he's played a very valuable, very prominent role in the company for a very long time. And perhaps this is the end of the line for him. Perhaps this is the end of the line for Gerald Brisco. That was a cut that I did not see coming. And then this week, Curtis Axel, Joe Hennig, was released, the son of Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig. Back when, remember, he was Michael McGillicuddy coming out of those NXT seasons. He went nowhere. He was going nowhere with that name. He was going nowhere fast. Then he got the Curtis Axel name change, which was sort of a combination of his father's name and his grandfather's name, Larry the Axe. And he got Paul Heyman as his manager. And he won the Intercontinental Championship in 2013, which was cool because at that point the IC title was still rocking the white strap and the classic design. The classic design that his father had held many years earlier. Not that ugly egg belt that they had for so long. And so to see him, just the visual of him wearing basically the same championship that his dad held is pretty cool. That was a pretty cool thing. And that, I guess unfortunately for him, turned out to be the peak of his career success. The same title in the IC title that I probably associate most with his father to this very day. When I think of that Intercontinental Championship, I probably associate it the most. Really, it's 3 guys. Actually, you know what? I'd say even 4. Mr. Perfect, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and Razor Ramon. Those are probably the guys I associate the most with that IC title design. So anyway, that little push that he was getting, that fizzled out. Although it did give us that great nipple confetti gif. I know you know what I'm talking about. You go look up nipple confetti and you'll see what I'm talking about. That might have been Curtis Axel's greatest contribution in WWE. Could they have done more with him? You know, this is a common question this is a common statement people make whenever anybody is released. Zack Ryder is released. Oh, they could have done more with him. Kurt Hawkins is released. Oh, they could have done more with him. EC3 is released. They could have done more with him. You bet your ass they could have done more with him. Curtis Axel is an interesting one. Could they have done more with him? Sure, they could have. They could have not cut the IC title run short, let that play out a little bit more, see where it took him. So, yeah, technically, of course, you could say that about almost anybody on the roster. They could do more with most of the talent that they have. That doesn't mean, though, that if they do, that talent is going to get over and become a big star, or that they're going to become some great success. And that, to me, is the bigger question. Would Curtis Axel, could he have gone on to greater lasting success? Or was he really ever only destined to be at the level that he was at? Not everybody is going to get over the way that the company wants them to. Sometimes it ain't their fault. There was a charisma there that his father had that I think they tried to replicate with him, and the reality is it just wasn't there. But then came the Rybacksel stuff. He and Ryback as a tag team. Ryback got hurt. That came to an end. The Royal Rumble match in 2015, where he was attacked before entering. He was never officially eliminated because he was never officially entered. But that was how the whole Axelmania thing was born. I was never eliminated. I should go on to WrestleMania 31 and challenge for the World Championship. And that kind of got him over in like a Rusev Day kind of way, Got him a little bit of fan support there. Still to this day, never eliminated from that Royal Rumble match. There was the Miz Taraj. There was the B Team with Bo Dallas. If I'm Bo Dallas, maybe I'm keeping my phone off. I'm just saying. But the reality is he wasn't climbing any higher than that. You know, when you have been slotted low down on the card in a comedy spot like he was for so many years, year after year after year, the big Curtis Axel push, it just wasn't coming. Now, maybe he was happy in the position that he was in. He wasn't really on television now at all. You know, the B-team stuff had pretty much played itself out. Was he happy just kind of being part of WWE and collecting a paycheck and just being part of the family? Or is he going to be one of those guys, you know, we're seeing these videos that EC3 is putting out. Heath Slater has talked about now having this renewed fire and passion that was lacking in his final years in WWE. Are we going to see something like that from Axel? Axel, I think, is 40 years old. How much gas does he have left in the tank? You know, are we going to see a big Curtis Axel push on the independent scene if the independent scene ever recovers? Right now, there is no independent scene, which is what makes it tough for guys like Curtis Axel and Kurt Hawkins and people like that. I don't know. I don't know that I really see some kind of big Curtis Axel resurgence. Maybe he'll prove a lot of people wrong. But to be honest, you know, he's a name that I would have expected them to, you know, when they're looking to trim the fat on people they're not using, the first people you look to are the people that you're not seeing on TV. He's one of those names I would have expected them to cut if they're looking to get rid of people. And that's exactly what they did. Did they cut the IC title run too short? Could they have tried harder with him? Yeah, but I don't know that things were going to wind up much better for him.